Guys, thanks for coming. I appreciate it, and really happy that thanks to Dale, we have Phil here to talk about some cool stuff, and I think he's going to give you some insight to places maybe to take your detectors and find your treasures. So enjoy. If you're hot and you need water, there's cold water and some candy in the fridge, so help yourselves, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for coming. And I'm a metal detectorist, and I find stuff. And I found a bunch of stuff at an old site just north of here, and I donated it all to the Pittsburgh Historical Society. And they had me come in and basically do the same presentation at their annual meeting. And Dale was there, and he thought it might be interesting for me to do it again, so I said, why not? So what I do is, unlike people that hunt beaches and things and are looking for gold coins or gold rings and jewelry and that, I'm interested in history. And I have found things back into the 1600s and all the way up. So over the past 10 years that I've been doing this, I have learned things that I never knew before, such as I didn't know what a large cent was, and just some interesting things that they had in the 18th century. Every time I find something, I learn something new. And we all have bucket lists. So there's things that we haven't found yet that other people have found that keeps us kind of going. So what I'm going to do here tonight is I'm going to break this down into sections. And first of all, I'm going to talk about the metal detector and how I use it and what it kind of represents to me. And then I'm going to talk about how do I decide where to go, where and where not to go. It goes both ways. And then after that, I'll talk about some of the sites that I found and how I found them and the things that I found. And hopefully that'll cover it. So let me see if I can do this without too much trouble. All right, I threw this in here yesterday because I came to talk to Lisa just to make sure that we were all set up and, still on track, that I would be here. And that plaque is out front, and I've never seen it before. I've only been here about 3 or 4 times. And I read it, and it said John Sutherland, first settler, 1767. And it tells you who lived west of the river, just south of the bridge. And my mind went like that. Has anybody ever gone looking for that site? Because I can assure you 100%, unless it was a quarry and they dug it all up, there would be a whole treasure trove of things that were left there from him and the time that he lived there. And as we get into the program, I'm going to show you how some of the things that I have found are in places that you would never suspect that there was a home site. But there it is right there. So you guys head west and head south and find that home site, because the stuff doesn't go anywhere. Once it's dropped, it stays there for eternity until somebody takes it. Doesn't walk away. It doesn't. I mean, there's obviously a flood or something like that. But and they've been dropping things from the beginning of the time. And every piece of metal, whether it be natural or man-made, if it hasn't rusted away, is still right where it was dropped today. And our job is to go find it. So when I saw that yesterday, I thought, oh my God, there's another spot. I better put that in my memory bank. So there's the Earth, the ultimate time capsule. The ground has things laying under the dirt, just a few feet under your feet, the surface, that have been accumulating. Well, let's say from John Sutherland, that's 250 years. And every year something more gets dropped. And so there is, the one thing this hobby has taught me, or shown me, is how much stuff is out there. It's incredible. And it's all over. But it's not all that easy to find all the time. Now, people find things by just digging test pits and things like that. I would find that to be, I don't understand that a little bit, because with this thing, I might wander all day long looking for something that might be laying on the ground. Now, obviously, these people go a little bit deeper. But to dig a hole, hoping that you're right over something, seems to me a lot of work. But it works. So that's another way of finding history in the ground. Now, I just want to throw this out quick, because this is a kind of a comedy show, British show, and it's the Detectors. And this is where Lance says they're time travelers. And basically he says, metal detecting is the closest you get to time travel. Archaeologists gather up facts and pieces and put the jigsaw together and find the buildings we lived in, etc. But what we do, that's different. We unearth the scattered memories, mine for the stories, fill in the personalities. We're time travelers. Now, I can relate to that, because if I find a site in the woods, it gives me all kinds of information about that site. Was it an 18th century site? Are the things there incredibly old and I find nothing new? Or are they, 1800s Civil War era, because I'm getting buttons and coins that are in the 1800s and later. So it tells you a lot about who lived there, who they might have been, what era, and so on. So that's the fun part to me, is doing that. All right, metal detector. What do you got to have? Well, you got to have a metal detector. Headphones are great. I wear headphones all the time because I'm blocking out the world and I'm just listening to the ground constantly. The ground's talking to me, because there's all kinds of noises that come out of the ground. But I'm looking for the good noises. You got to have a shovel to get the thing out. You got to have, I should use my little homemade pointer here. A pinpointer helps you pinpoint where that item is in that hole that you just dug, because sometimes you don't always see it. And then a bag to carry things in, whether it be junk or treasure, to carry it out. So that's basically what you need to get into this hobby.
Is a pinpointer also a metal detector?
A pinpointer detects metal.
Okay.
My wife just had her knee replaced with a titanium knee, and I can make it go off on her knee. So now you're going to cause me to give you these little little pieces of stories. But my daughter-in-law was sitting on her porch and talking to me, and her husband, which is my son, is an avid turkey hunter. And they have problems because some of the meat that they packed and frozen or eat or whatever, they might miss a pellet. And she asked me, knowing that I was a detector, is there anything that you can, that will pick out a pellet? And I said, yeah. And I went out in my truck and I got my pinpointer. And I just kind of showed her. Well, the next day, I see this post where my son and Tom LaVictory are good friends. Tom LaVictory posts, hey, here's a neat way to find. So it's kind of like a stud finder. You can find any metal behind the wall, yesterday, I have a pipe in the ground that I throw a rod in for a dog leash, and I couldn't find the thing. I got my pinpointer on, I just swept like this across the thing, and it helped me find it. So, yes, they have other useful purposes as well. Just let your imagination be your guide. Now, here I am, walking through the field, metal detector, pinpointer. Here's my bag where I keep water and all that other stuff. That's what I look like when I'm out there. Now, how I look at this metal detector is like a doctor and his stethoscope. You know, I'm listening to everything in the ground. Now, if I went to the doctors and said, well, let me listen, what are you listening to? It wouldn't make any sense. I might identify a heartbeat, but anything else would be foreign to me. And that's like the metal detectors. When you start out, you don't know all these noises, you don't know what they mean. You don't know, is that something I should dig? Is that something I should pass over? Should I keep going? And over time, and I don't think you ever stop getting better, because the more holes you dig, then the more you remember, oh, that was a pull tab. So this sounds just like the last pull tab. And hey, I don't think I'm going to find anything Colonial here because I'm at Branberry Beach or something. It's a park full of bottle caps and pull tabs and memorial pennies. So you got to also remember, where are you? But if I'm up in the woods and I'm at a site like this and I've just dug 3 shotgun head stamps, well, I'm going to keep digging them because I know that one of those could be an old pewter button with a military regiment on it. So it's a stethoscope to me. I am listening to every sound that comes out of the ground and waiting for something to say, dig me. All right, so the metal detector has a way of defining what might be in the ground. It's a conductivity meter. So what it does is you sweep over whatever item it is, and to me, what I say to people is, imagine that if I had a tin can in one hand and a bell in another, and I said to you, close your eyes, I'm going to hit one of these 2 items, and I want you to guess what it was. I mean, it'd be pretty easy to say, oh, that was the can or that was the bell. So with a metal detector, that's what you're listening for. You're listening for, you know, if it's a can, I'm not digging it. If it's a bell, here I go. You know, this is what I've been waiting for. So that's a simple way to describe it. And let me see. All right, now I want to demonstrate something for a minute of what I just said, and then we'll get to this picture, the meaning behind this picture. In this bag here, I've got, this is what drives my wife crazy. Okay, now I've got a coin and I got a nail. So here's the coin, is the bell in that previous picture. Hear how nice and clean that is and how high that is? Now here's the nail. Tin can, bell, okay? Now, if there's a coin in the field and there's no other junk around it, it's like that deer stand in the field. It's like we're driving down the road. I say, hey, look on that field, there's deer. You look out, yep, there's deer, okay? But the problem is, sometimes the coin and the nail are laying in the same hole. And then it becomes like this deer over here. Look. This deer over here. The trees are the nails, and the deer is the target you're looking for. Now this is what it sounds when they're together. not so clear. So what we try to do, what we try to perfect, coin, and yell. It hides it, just like it's hiding the deer. So later in the show here, I'm going to show you how I find a coin over a spot that I have been going over 100 times. And the reason I didn't find it all those times was because if I said, hey, there's a deer in the woods there, and you look like this, you might not see it. But if you step over here, no, I don't see it yet. And you move around until you finally saw that deer. And what that detector is doing is it doesn't see it in the first spot you're seeing. And you go over, you walk up the hill, you come back down and go over the same spot. Don't hear it again, don't hear it again, don't hear it again. The 10th time, there's a little peep because you got just right to get here around those nails. That's the trick in metal detecting. That's where you start to become more accomplished. You start to realize that if I'm in a good site, I have got to go over this thing 100 times, and I've got to listen real close, and I got to hit it different ways. Because that's the way it works. Now, so where can I go to find good stuff? Me, I'm interested in the history. So now I kind of think I know what I'm doing. Let me turn that off for a minute. Okay. So now I think I know what I'm doing. Now where do I go? Well, I'll show you what I kind of do. I look at, this is an 1869 map of Pittsburgh. And what it does is it shows you where all the houses and names, who lived there and all that back when they drew maps. That's kind of what they did. And I want you to kind of just pay it. I want to point out here that Pittsburgh in 1869 had a straight line for its southern boundary. Okay? So anything that happened above that line was Pittsburgh history. But anyway, I might look at that and might say, oh, geez, there was a house right there. There's nothing there anymore. Maybe I can knock on the door and see if the person will let me go there. Because there's surely good stuff there. Everybody drops things, everybody leaves things, they throw them out. There's still stuff in the ground. Okay. The other technology that's available is LiDAR. LiDAR is a mapping system, and what it does is it measures elevation, and it's quite a process from an airplane. They shoot lasers down, it bounces back up, and then the computer also monitors the movement of the plane, whether it's down, up, sideways like that, and what it does is it subtracts that movement of the plane as now it looks like it's going just like that, so it gets an accurate measurement of the ground. What you're looking at here is a cellar hole, something that is unnatural. This over here is typical ground that hasn't been anything done with it. It has a texture to it. Your eye starts to get used to it once you get used to using this technology. This over here is a stone wall. This is smooth. It's been plowed. It's been manipulated. This up here, look at that. That's smooth. Look at the hit marks over here. So if you look at LiDAR, it's an easy way to travel a lot of places, and just on your couch, and you might find something that you didn't know existed before. This could be up in the woods, happens to be near a road. And with your cursor, which isn't shown here, if you move it right over that, it'll give you the GPS lat and longitude. You can plug that into your phone and you'll walk right to it. And you might have driven by it 100 times, but and not seen it, but there it is on LiDAR. So that's another tool that I use besides the old maps. And here's a place down in Clarendon, and I want to use this as an example. This is a historic photo. And I know for a fact that there was a home site here because I've been there and I've found things and all that. But I want to show you how you also pick out home sites right there, that dark spot, that little square, that's the result of a cellar hole being filled in. The material is not the same as the material around it, and it leaves this shadow right there. So another tool is the historic photos, aerial photos, and if I was just, in my area saying, I wonder if there was anything in the field across the street, and I saw something like that, I'd go investigate it, because that's indicative of something being there, especially looking a little bit square like it does. So we've got old hand-drawn maps, we've got LiDAR, we've got aerial photos. Now, we're getting a little bit closer here. This is an aerial photo of the Gorham Bridge, the creek, and we're going to be talking about right in here pretty soon. This is Gorham Bridge Road, probably at one time it was Stevens Road, an extension. All right, now here's another source that's great. This book is phenomenal. This was published in 1872. And what that means to me is it's very detailed. It's got all the information about all the stuff you want for the area, for Pittsburgh. And it was written in 1872, so if you think about it, 100 years before that was 1772, and that's when most of the settlers were coming in. So the guy who wrote this could have very well interviewed people who got stories directly from their fathers who lived here. I mean, that time frame of 100 years isn't a big gap. So the stuff in here might be pretty accurate, and it might, it's got everything you want to know, describes where places were, who lived in places, and etc. So that's another resource that, you see how my life is all about doing this? All right, so now we're going to get to Roger Stevens. Roger Stevens is the site that I found a lot of artifacts, relics, and coins, and that I gave to the Pittsburgh Historical Society. So we're going to focus on Roger Stevens for now. Now, in the spring, this is out of that book, the Cavalry Book, I can't say that. In the spring of 1770, through the influence of Captain Doolittle, Roger Stevens came to Pittsburgh, purchased a large tract of land, built a house into which he removed his family, and with the assistance of his sons, soon made quite an opening in the primitive forest. Now it tells you, the house stood on the high ground about 30 rods west of the present Gorham Bridge. Couldn't be any more detailed than that. And on the south side of the old military or Crown Point Road. The cellar is to be seen from the bottom of which are now growing 2 butternut trees. Okay. Now, what that means is in 1772-ish, that house was gone. There was nothing but a cellar hole that it stood on, and the house was gone. So there was no house there in 1772. So when did it disappear? Well, we might be able to answer some of that. Now it continues. Roger Jr. married Martha in 1773. So we're going to stop there, and we'll get back to Roger Jr. a little bit going forward. Okay. Now, in 1886, which is after 1869, I showed you that map, and Pittsburgh had a straight southerly border. But in 1886, Redfield Proctor went to the Vermont legislature, and they allowed him to have 7 1/2 square miles to be cut out of the towns of Rutland and Pittsburgh to form Proctor. So now Pittsburgh has that little hole in it, if you will. Now, what's important about that, why I bring this up, how does that relate to this? Because Roger Stevens' site now which was back in 1770, was in Pittsburgh, is now in Proctor. So it shares the history. Both towns get to claim a little bit of history on Roger Stevens' site. That's why it's relevant to me doing this here. Okay, now, Roger came in 1770 and cleared all that land. So that's the time, 1770. A guy named Tilly Walker, son of Abraham, bought of his father the Roger Stevens place August 30th, 1796. Now what happened was, it's in the book, but I couldn't get it all shown on one page. But what happened is Roger Stevens built the place in 1770, and he then sold it to Abraham, who owned it for about a year. So that would have meant he sold it in 1795. And then Abraham sold it to his son Tilly in 1796. Okay. He resided on that farm till about the year 1824, when he moved to the state of New York, where with his son, where he soon died after death. So we have a home site that was occupied from about 1770 to about 1824, and then after he left, because in 1872 it was nothing more than a hole with trees growing out of it, he was probably the last one to live there. I mean, these are conclusions that aren't cast in stone, but you can assume that about 1824 is when he left. Now, are the artifacts consistent with those time frames? And that's what metal detecting helps you put together. All right, so this might have been what typically that home site up there looked like. You know, you'd have a guy cutting trees to clear the land, you'd have an oxen, which was a John Deere tractor back in the day. You'd have a log home with boards for a roof, and maybe a horse to bring things up from the bottom to help you survive. And I have a theory I'm going to show you about that cellar hole. I'm not sure that cellar hole was in fact Roger Stevens. It could have been, it might have been, it probably was according to all accounts, but it might not have been. Okay, so a friend of mine, Bill Powers, gave me this picture. This was taken about 1911, and there's the cellar hole right there. And it sits on the ridge above the valley. Right below here is the Gorham Bridge. So that's kind of that's what it looked like if you were around 1911. If you were walking around taking pictures. Now, here's a LiDAR shot. I hope you can all kind of see this. But in the blue circle, there's the cellar hole. LiDAR is imaging that anomaly right there. And the other thing I want to point out is, here's the Gorham Bridge. Here's the old Crown Point Military Road path that went up through White's Crossing and then on. But I want you to look at, and then here's a railroad that came through in probably like 1849, something like that. But right here, there is an old roadbed. You can see that thing right there. And then you can see this over here that comes down to about where the Crown Point Road marker is. And I walked that the other day. And what you'll find there in here is along that image are just stacked stones, as if somebody wanted to build it up. And what I think was, before the railroad, the Crown Point Road went right by here, but what I think was Tilly Walker or Roger Stevens had roads that went right up into here, this way, and went up into this way. Because when you get on this side of the tracks, There is an old roadbed that comes down through here that LiDAR didn't quite pick up, that I've walked and metal detected and found stuff. So what LiDAR does is it kind of shows you things that the naked eye doesn't really pick up. And I'll bet you, if you look at it, you're going to say, oh yeah. But if you've ever been in this spot, you've probably never seen that little strip of roadbed. And it's pretty steep, but they didn't care. They had oxen and they had horse, and they went up. And I think that might have been. But this is the things LiDAR is doing. But that's the separate hole right there. That was the one that was in the 1911 picture. Okay, so this is a War of 1812 military infantry. I'm told it's an officer's eagle gun. War of 1812. That was around that cellar hole. That was one of the first things that I found. I didn't find a lot because it's been picked over 1,000 times by previous metal detectors. I did find a few other, maybe a couple pewter buttons and things, but not a treasure trove of stuff. But somehow that got missed. And again, there's always something that gets missed. So that was kind of cool. But it was War of 1812 officer. So remember, Tilly was there till 1824. So that would have been in that time. Was he in the military? Did he serve? I don't know. Somebody else got to do a deeper dive on that. So let me see. All right, now.
Guys, I'm headed over to the cellar hole, which is right there.
I want to show you
And
this.
I was
Is kind of
crossing this little brook, and I got a signal right down in that hole that I just dug, and I got something. And that's all I've seen of it. What the heck have I got? Let's hold. What is that? I don't know what it is. It's got something on it. Well, let me inspect it a little closer. So I can figure out what
This is what we do.
Matt, this is an old site. Ooh, there's a date out there. I think this is some kind of counterfeit coin.
It's a counterfeit.
Isn't this? Alright, I'll look it over and I'll tell you what I think I got. Oh my gosh, great find, just got here.
Okay, so there's a brook that everybody who goes up there and does this has to cross. So I checked the brook. Right in the middle of that stream, probably 4 or 5 inches down, I got that signal, and that's what I pulled out. So what that is that is a counterfeit cat bust 1820 $50. I might have missed, did I miss a?
This guy,
Okay, maybe it's the next one. But, yeah, there it is right there. That's a good picture of it. It was whole. There's the bust. There's the eagle. There's the date down there, 1820. Now, let's put that into perspective. When did Tilly leave? 1824. Did Tilly try to make a coin in 1820? I don't know. But this is what causes the mind to sort of do tricks on you. Okay, so not much here. Button, counterfeit coin, a few other buttons that aren't meant. So where do I go now? All right, so maybe there was a starter home. Okay, how long? You tell me. How long does it take to dig a hole, collect the rocks, put the rock, line the hole with rocks, get the lumber, build the house? Yeah, I mean, that doesn't get done in a day. You gotta have a place to stay while you're doing that. So when I find a home site that's been abandoned for a long time, I always ask myself, well, where did they stay? Was there a starter home? So you wanna get away from that hole, but not too far away, and keep looking. All right, so here's that LiDAR, and there's the cellar hole. The stream runs down through here, and that's where the $50 was. But these things are curious. Look at these. Yeah. And again, when you look at this long enough, this is just the texture of nothing. But that looks like something. And then here's where the road goes right here. So you've got the magic formula of road access, a stream, water, and some anomaly home site. You better go check it out. So start wandering. So I did. And I got away from what surprised me about this area right here, and this is where the bulk of everything came from. What surprised me is nobody else did what I did. They all went to the hole, they didn't find anything, they went home. Seems like it. And they didn't look for the subtle, those things that were in that red circle. Those were just little tiny piles of rock, but they were stacked rock, and they didn't stack themselves. So you got to go check them out. So the first thing I found was this dandy button, and it was a little kind of a entryway up to this next level. I found this thing. Oh, I thought that was, hey, that's pretty good. And started hearing noise, like the nails. There's the back of it. That's 1700s all the way. And then I find a complete pewter spoon. Well, you know, what's a pewter spoon and a dandy butt doing 200 feet away from the cellar hole when I didn't find anything down there? Well, not much. And then here is a King George I coin, and they stopped minting them 1724, I think, somewhere in there, and started minting King George VI. But I started finding coins and buttons and spoons, and I realized that, and all that iron debris field noise, I found another site here that seems to have had activity, and no one else ever came up here. Lucky me. And then there's the back of it, that's Britannia. And then this is a Connecticut, 1787 Connecticut copper. Now, the copper coins don't hold up very well. Silver and gold, they look like the day they got dropped. They'll never eat themselves up, so to speak. But it depends on where it's laying. Is it the pH level of the soil, how much moisture, what condition was it when it got dropped. They are very hard to identify, but I can see over here CONNEC, and that's a Connecticut copper. Now, these were minted in late 1780s, like 85, 86, 87. In 1787, the Congress said to all the states who were minting coins, knock it off, we're taking over the minting. So that's why you don't really see, there are a few 1788s, but I've never seen a 1789 coin. So there was a small window where New York, Vermont, and Massachusetts, Connecticut, they were all minting coins and they were getting all over the place. And this was up there. Now, in theory, if Roger Stevens left in 1795, and this is a 1787 coin, I may have the coin that Roger Stevens had in his pocket and dropped. So this find ties me all the way back to this guy who's in the history books. And if this is all, we don't ever know, but I'm the first person to touch that coin, and the last person was Roger Stevens himself. That's amazing if you think about it. So that's the kind of stuff that keeps us going. And then there's the back. And the state coins mimicked the British coins with, the British coins would have a king on the front and then Britannia on the back. And I think they did this just so that people would be more comfortable with the coin. Even though it was minted in Vermont or Connecticut, it looked like the ones they'd been using. So I think there was an intention there to put some kind of image that resembled King George and some kind of image that resembled Britannia.
I was gonna head up there, I think this was old pasture, and I got a nice signal. I thought it might be a large ear, a large copper.
Oh, this
Look at
is amazing right here.
Look at this. Silver. These are, kind of forgot the name of what these are,
Luck and Booth brooch.
but these are old 1700 silver right there. Holy mackerel. And it was only
That
a
was
few
a
inches
bucket
down.
lister. I never
I thought it
found
was
one
gonna
of
be a
those before.
memorial because it wasn't that deep.
Look at the mosquitoes.
Look at that.
Jedi mind trick.
Oh my gosh,
Ignore 'em.
I'm psyched. There was a pin right there, I don't know if it was silver. I'll sweep the hole, see if I can find it. Awesome.
So that silver is so old, and I'm sure it goes back to the 1700s, or when Roger Stevens was there. It doesn't have any marking on it like sterling or 925. Back then it's a silver brooch. Now I think I have, there's a picture of it. And this was something I think that was started in Ireland, and they were given as to people who were getting married, and they became fashionable, and they were pinned all over. So if you were somebody important, there's the back of it. And the pin was missing, and perhaps it was discarded or it just got lost because the pin broke. All right, now here is what I got out of the internet, and it says, by the mid-18th century, Luck and Booth tokens also featured heavily as trade silver items to the indigenous people of North America, particularly the Six Nations and Iroquois Indians. As a result, the Iroquois created their own Iroquois brooch, and Luck and Booth became a common decorative symbol in 18th and early 19th century native clothing. So there's a picture of one off the internet. I watch other people dig them on YouTube, other channels and things like that. So that's how we create these bucket lists. Oh, I want to find one of those. So I finally found one, and I gave it to the Historical Society of Pittsburgh. And a lot of that, all this stuff, not all of it is on display, but a lot of it's on display up there in Pittsburgh. So I get to keep the pictures, and I had the fun digging it.
This is a crazy hobby. I'm up at an old site. I dug a couple old pewter spoons. This might go back to the 1770s. And the guy who built the house here, his son was a spy, actually, for the British in the Revolutionary War. And I did dig a coat button here, Rev War coat button, Regiment 31. So, there is some connection with Rev War and the family that lived here, even though they were Tories. And later, the land was confiscated, and they ended up going to Canada. But I just dug what I think is either a cannonball or a Rev War era hand grenade. And I have dug a fragment of a hand grenade up in a place called Whiting, Vermont, at a Red War soldier's home. And so I'm going to turn it around. I got this thing down in the stream, and I'm not sure what this is. I'm sure my digging buddies on the internet will let me know, but this is crazy. This is absolutely nuts. Let me turn it around.
So imagine you're up in the woods a few hundred feet from Gorham Bridge,
Okay, I put it down in the stream
and you
here.
find a hand grenade.
Clean it up. But look at this thing.
And all this is just laying in the ground and will lay there until somebody digs it up.
See if I can find a fuse on it. It's about the size of a Red War hand grenade, which I didn't know there was such a thing until I dug a fragment. Or this is a small, maybe 4-pound cannonball or something. What is it doing up here at this home site? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Alright, I'll let you know when I find out. I'll take it home and clean it up. I'll get those nodules off. I'll be real careful, because there's always that potential that something could go off. But unbelievable. I think I got a cannonball. That's nuts. Alright.
So this is what the hobby's all about. It's just, you find things sometimes you were never expecting. And there's a picture of it cleaned up. And that's the fuse hole. And after I knocked all the rust off of it. And there's a picture of somebody, and then they used to, the old phrase, clear the decks. They'd throw them on the ships and before they boarded and invaded another boat or something. So that was a surprise, but the more that I did, now it starts to become a home site with spoons and items, but now there's some military buttons and hand grenades and things starting to get mixed in. So the question is, what was going on up here? And remember, his son, Roger Jr., was a spy for the British. Now there's a 26th Regiment button that I found at this site, which was a couple hundred feet away from where everybody else went and probably cleaned it out, but for some reason never went here. And then there's the back of it. Now here's the 31st. You can see the 3 and the 1. This is pewter, and that is pewter doesn't hold up because it's made of lead and tin and things, so it kind of corrodes a little bit. So I don't know if I have the other one, but I found 2 of these, the 26th Regiment, and a hand grenade up there. And there's the back of the pewter button. Oh, this is the other pewter button, I believe. That's another 31st. I did throw that in there. And that's the back of that one. And then it says, British 31st Regiment of Foot, other rank, pewter button, fought at Saratoga. And from what I read, and I can't remember, so let me just give you the gist of it. Roger Stevens used to go to Whitehall and meet with some British general or whatever, or contact. And I think he even might have gone to Saratoga and been involved in that. That I read about Roger Stevens Jr. Now this isn't Senior. I think Senior was just a pleasant old farmer. But I want you to, I want to say this, and then I want you to remember it a little bit further in the presentation, that this may have been a site, because it was a little bit remote from town, up on a hill, not easy access. This might have been a meeting site where Roger Jr. would use Roger Sr.'s house to meet with his British contacts to talk about what was going on in the area. So just kind of put that aside for a minute. But, why else would, I mean, Roger Stevens Sr. wasn't a spy, or I don't believe he was the Tory, it was his son.
Okay, guys, right in front of me, and
Oh,
you see those
right.
little stones here?
This is all that's
It's a little
left.
bit of a pile. You can barely notice it. And if you look, we got some brick. Oh, there's a piece of pottery. There. There's some more brick.
This is what I look for.
This might have been a chimney stack, and I just found that King George I right there in this entranceway of the thing. And turning you around, I'm gonna do a semi-live dig. I'm getting a pretty nice 80 signal here, although you know you're fooled all the time. But let's dig it up together.
Now, this is a little pile of stones. There's no cellar hole, no nothing.
There.
But it might have been a chimney stack on a
Of course, this
log
is
house that
appreciated.
fell down.
Operation.
And this is the one that I said I've been over 100 times, and it was the deer in the woods, and I finally went just the right angle, and it was right behind this chimney stack.
Oh, I think I've got a silver. Oh, this is exciting. I think. Unless it's a button. Oh my gosh. I'm going to tell you something. This is going to be old. So, pull it out here. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Look at. Oh my gosh, it's going to be a 1 real. Oh my gosh. Let me, I'm getting my water bottle out now. Ooh, yes it is. It is a real.
And this is a silver 1 real from Mexico City,
This is so exciting.
and back in the 1700s, most of the silver coins were either from Spain or
8 and 17.
Mexico, and the copper coins were from Britain.
81. Oh my gosh, what a nice find that is. That is super.
17,
So,
let's say
on the
81.
day of King George I
Yeah.
in a 1781
Now,
one
did
ring.
Roger Stevens Sr. drop that out of his pocket, and I was the next guy to pick it up?
Unbelievable.
Pretty good chance.
Mexico City.
And it's been laying there for over 200 years. It's silver, so it looks
Alright.
pretty darn good.
I'm going to keep swinging. I
And
missed that 100
it would have stayed there for eternity
Lesson
unless,
is
if I hadn't gone there or somebody else hadn't gone
good step, keep going back. Alright. On to the next. I'll clean it up, take a few still pictures.
And there it is, nice, pretty, crisp, just like the day it was dropped. And then there's the back of it. And here are a few random pictures of other things, like this is a shoe buckle part, there's the 31st Regiment. This is probably an oxen tooth or something, I don't know. A couple buttons, and then there's that Liberty cap, not Liberty cap, cap bust, $50, counterfeit. But if the U.S. minted that, it would be as shiny as that real. It would be made out of silver. That's why that's counterfeit, because it's made out of some other metal combination of alloy of something. And it was probably a sand cast. They probably took a real one, put it in the sand, poured that in, tried to make a, I don't get it, but.
So after you pulled out the silver coin, do you go back and check it again, the hole? Or?
Oh yes, you always do that. That's
Yeah, okay.
that's religion. You might have missed something. As a matter of fact, there's quite a few times you do miss things because you move the dirt around and you find one thing and the detector didn't hear the other because of how it was positioned. But now you've dug the dirt up and you found something. You think, oh, that was it. No, there's another one in there. So you always double check that. And then hammer and I think that's a, what am I trying to say, currycomb thing, some old dinnerware stuff, musket balls. I mean, these are just the common, that would be indicative of an old home site kind of thing, minus the military stuff. There's some more junk that you pull out of there. But there was a lot of stuff which said to me, nobody ever went any further than the original cellar hole that's so obvious to everybody. And I think that's a King George II. I haven't shown you that one yet, but that's 1727 to 1760. And then this is called a rat tail pewter spoon because that little thing right there looks like a rat tail. So there's all kinds of, there's a pewter cast one, but this is all period for this site. And now, the thing I want to point out is I do have a YouTube channel and I film everything. So when I turn things over to people that are really good finds, I still get to keep the pictures and all that. So and I've got to do the digging. But what I wanted to point out here is that these uploads that I did, if you want to watch all the stuff that I pulled out, and I kept them around 15 minutes or so, it's all documented and recorded on the YouTube channel. And that's what it's for. This is my personal journal. This isn't my ticket to become rich and famous. I'm already that. All right, so I've cleaned this place out. Now where do I go? Well, Roger Stevens had a son. Where's Roger Stevens Jr.'s house? All right, so this picks up from what I read to you before, but let's start here. Roger Jr. married Martha, don't know the last name, in 1773. So if you get married, you probably build your own house. So I'm going to say that this site was probably a home site that was begun in 1773 and located, this is the key, and made the first improvements on the farm recently owned by Edwin Wheaton. So if it's recently owned and the book was written in 1872, it would be on the 1869 map. Where the heck is Edwin Wheaton lived? The house built by Mr. Stevens stood about 70 rods east of the present house. So if you put your time frame mind into 1872, he's basically saying you can find where this home was if you go to Edwin Wheaton's and head east about 70 rods or whatever it was, which is about 1,500 feet or 1,200 feet, something like that. But anyway, so I'm going to go look for that. All right, so where Edwin Wheaton live? Well, there he is right there. Here's Pittsburgh, Keith Stores right here. This is Depot Hill. There's the covered bridge. You go north, and you'll find Edwin Wheaton's house. So if it's 70 rods east, it should be around here someplace. Let's go see if we can find it. And we did. So, the book said that it was 70 rods, which is about 1,154 feet. So I'm looking all over here, and it takes time, and I can't find it, and I couldn't find it. There's where the brook comes in. This would be Pittsford. So I decided after, geez, I'm just not finding this place. I should find it, just like I showed you in Roger Stevens. It's obvious when you get over it. It makes all kinds of noise. I didn't find it. I didn't find any cellar holes or nothing. So I decided to take a walk up into the field, and there it was right there, about 760 feet, which is, about 400 feet short of where they told me it was. But I found it. So if you look up the hill in that field, that house sat right on this little arc right here, right at the very top. What is it now? It's just a hayfield. Now, I planted my shovel where I determined the center of that house was. Now, the only way you're ever going to find that is with one of these, or if you plow all the ground up and do the arc. But this whole hillside, whole top, was loaded with 18th century stuff. And I'll get to that in a minute. But that's where that house was. You would never know it, except this thing started chattering, all the nails. And there's a guy who lives down in this house, grew up as a kid down there, and he was blown away when I told him that, because they had played on this hill and never knew that they were 4, 5, 6 inches over 250-year-old coins and things like that. Okay,
What the heck is this?
you can see it's wintertime.
Okay,
This is good.
it's the first one with a horse on it. Oh wow, don't tell me this is a part of a sword. Look at that, what is this? Yes! Oh my gosh,
This
this
is a
is,
sword went through. It's a handguard.
that's where a sword blade went through, that's part of the handle. Oh my, look at that.
Probably more accurately called a saber.
That is to protect the hand, it's got force on it. And the blade, oh my gosh, this is part of the sword.
And it's this far down,
Oh my god, look at this.
just below the surface.
Look at that. How nice is that? Oh my gosh, let me clean this up. Holy mackerel.
It doesn't take much to amuse me. All right, so here's one I found on the internet, and very similar. And this was where it was, and it would protect the hand where if another sword came down, saber or whatever, it would get caught behind that. And the right up behind this was talking about the blade and who made them, the family that made them back in the 1700s in Germany. So it definitely said that this was an 18th century build, but it didn't talk about that, and I don't have any information on who made those, but it's very similar to the one I found. If you take a look at that. Man on a horse, two, figures holding up something. And this would have been part of the handle. Guess what? This is in the field, so plows tend to damage everything. And then this here is probably bent down a little bit, but that would have been that. So that was a saber from the 1700s. That piece got discarded and lost up there at this site. Now, here's some other things that I found there. This is King George II. No, I can't see that. You know, I think that's a King William. I think that's a 1699. But these are coins. This is a Chinese coin, and I looked that up only for a couple hours matching the figures on it, and I don't know anything about Chinese coin. But interestingly enough, that falls right into the same window time frame as these coins over here. And then this, I had no idea what this was, but when you find things, you learn what you didn't know, I guess. Okay, what that thing was is a good quality 18th century brass pastry jigger. Having a brass wheel and a semicircular crimp, the whole has a good patina color. English, circa 1770. Boom, everything's right in that time frame. He built a house in 1773. You know, this would have been Mrs. Stevens's tool to make a pie for Junior when he came home from doing his spying. You can make up any story you want. Then here's the Chinese coin, and that I matched with the one I found, and it was cast between. They didn't put dates on these coins for some reason, They just minted whatever dynasty was going on at the time. And this one cast brass, 1741 to 1794. Boom, right in the same time frame. So somebody was up there and had a Chinese coin in their pocket and they dropped it. And this is kind of the total of the stuff that I found there. There were a dozen coins, dozen old coins. There's the Chinese. There's that saber gizmo, musket balls, buttons. This was interesting. It had 4 red ruby kind of stones in it. I don't know what it was. Pewter spoons and some iron cookware, all busted up. But that's indicative of a home site. They had iron pots to cook in, spoons to eat out of, buttons off their shirts. This is actually a part of a musket. I don't know which part, part of the trigger probably that got busted off. But that was Roger Stevens Jr. Now, what I want to point out is this, and this is a question you can ask yourself. If this was his home site, which was indicative of all this stuff, quite honestly, was found in an area no larger than the size of this room. And you get outside of that, and it went quiet. And it was pretty amazing. So you knew you were on a home site, and even the side of the hill where they must have done all the activity. But I didn't find any regiment buttons. I didn't find any hand grenades and whatnot. And the question is, did Roger Stevens Jr. keep his military business away from his wife and his daughter and do all of his business up at his father's place and only do his domestic stuff here? So that's what I suspect. Now, the other thing about metal detecting is saving history and making friends. This is honestly as good as the fines and all their stuff. I have met so many people through this hobby that I know more people now than I knew growing up. There's farmers that I've met. This woman right here up in Orwell owns this hundreds of acres. We are the best of friends. I sit there in the summertime, eat ice cream sandwiches. I mean, it becomes more than just metal detecting. It actually becomes a connection with the people. They actually, I was up in the woods one day and the storm come ripping through, and they enjoyed my company so much that she sent him up on the 4-wheeler to make sure I was okay. So, I mean, it really kind of warms your heart a little bit with the people and the connections you make every year when you go back in the summer. This is a woman down in Clarendon, Ellie. I did her yard. I didn't bring it tonight, but I have a box of Colonial coins and things I found in her yard next to her double wide you'd never suspect. But why did I want to hunt her yard? Because it's on the opposite side of the river from the old Kingsley Mill, which prior to that in the 1700s was a mill site. And I figured when they built the dam, they had to come over this side and do something to connect the two sides. But what I found was remnants of another old home site with the same stuff that I find at all home sites. Buttons, coins, things like that. So this is another case where you'd never know it by looking in her yard, hey, that's nicely mowed, but that was actually a Colonial home site back there. Because you're digging nails, you're digging all the stuff you find at a Colonial home site. There is a backstory to this. One day I was down there and I was coming back because it started raining and I got a signal and I dug it up. And this is kind of a great story. This is a personal story. I found a gold wedding ring and had a date and a name inside. And so I go knock on her door. I said, Ellie, I found this gold ring in your yard. You know anything about it? And she is Charlotte. She goes, well, 40 years ago, she said, we had a couple, my husband and I, help us clear this lot when we moved here, and they lost their wedding ring. So, long story short, I got the name, I went on Facebook, I found the person, they lived down in South New Jersey. I messaged them and I said, you need to call Ellie DeLong, she's got something to tell you. So she did, then she messaged me back, oh my God, and et cetera, et cetera. Ellie mailed the ring down to them. They actually videoed them opening the package of a wedding ring that her husband lost 40 years ago, gets shipped to them in the mail. I've got that all on video. That's one of the videos on my channel. It's called The Ring. And I interview Ellie, and she tells me all about the day they lost the ring. So again, this personal connection, it's just a lot of fun. Now this is, Lisa wanted me to talk about this because it's sort of local history. This is up in Pittsburgh. This is the Rasmussen farm. That's Mimi Rasmussen. Mimi, I asked if I could do their farm because I'm still looking for Fort Mott. I haven't found it yet. But I did read in that history book about an old tavern from 1790, the Hammond Tavern. Thomas Hammond, the same Hammond that the covered bridge, the Hammond covered bridge is named after. Anyway, I go walking around and I missed it by just a little bit. I was probably down here someplace. And I went all the way down to the other creek. I walked all day. I came back and I said, I'm going to give it one more shot. I came around and I see this slight depression in the pasture, all short grass. And my detector starts going off like crazy. Geiger cutter. I'm over a site. This has got to be a site. So we start digging, and this is the place that I pulled out 30 copper coins, 28 of them, all from the 1700s. Now, Mamie was interested, and I had a spare detector. Actually, it was this one, and I was using another one. And she got into it, and I showed her how to use it, and she was starting to find things. We were having a ball. So I found shoe buckles, old coins, a neck stock buckle, which is, I won't get it on, dandy buttons, landscape Vermont copper, baby head Vermont copper, King George II, yada yada, and she got it all. I gave it all to her. And that's her holding three coins. Probably came out of a couple holder. And we had fun. That was a great sight. And then there's other people that I run into the woods. And it's all about having fun, meeting people. That day I think I found a Connecticut cowboy.
Yeah, and I found a two-pronged fort, musket ball.
Yeah. So that's what we did.
Yeah, you bring them up to other people. I wasn't finding anything for that.
Now, again, on the channel, right here, this is the special edition Colonial Tavern site. That was the Rasmussen site. And I put, instead of breaking it up, because I don't think most people don't have an attention span of more than 15 minutes. I don't. And but this one I put all together, and this one's about an hour long. But it's got 11,000 views, so I don't know, maybe people like to sit around longer. And then, so if you go on the site, here's the Roger Stevens Sr. place, here's the Hammond Tavern, and I actually haven't uploaded anything from Junior's site yet, but I've got all that. And again, it's my memory box. When I sit in the nursing home and I can't get out of bed, I'm going to be watching what I used to be able to do, and probably then the nurses will say, why is that guy smiling all the time? Oh, and then this is another thing that I have bird friends. This bird has followed me all around. You hear that noise? That's the Roger Stevens waterfall. I'm on top of it. Every time I go to this site, this bird comes out of the
Crazy bird.
follows me all over. I've never seen anything like it.
Here. Oh! Oh! Fell in the water there, Bob. It's okay.
There it is, my bird friend. So that's what we got. Oh, the other thing is, I was going to mention, I didn't pass them around, but I have, these are old copper coins. And when I say that stuff is everywhere, you know, about this time of night, if I'm bored and I got about an hour, I went across the road into the cornfield across the street from my house. I got permission for that from the lady. And one of these is New Jersey copper from 1788, and the other one's King George the Second or Third, I mean, from about 1807, I think it is. So there's stuff everywhere. You just gotta, you know, be patient. It takes a lot of time. Before questions, I just want to show a few things. I find axe heads. I probably got over 50 axe heads, but this one's somewhat unique, and it has a story. I know whose this was. This was found down in Colonial on the site, home site, right on the site where the house was, of Solomon Johns. Solomon Johns was a Tory. He was kicked out of town. He went to Canada like most of the guys do. But this was down about 1.5 feet, close to 2 feet. And because of its mass, I could hear it. But typically, and I know there's been another detectorist here who's hit that place pretty hard. But I heard this repeated clunk, clunk, clunk. And sometimes I just get tenacious and say, I'm going to find out what that is. And I assumed it was an old plow piece or something, because it was deep. And I kept digging. I finally got down to it, which is why other people probably passed by it, because they didn't care. Because it was iron, they could tell it was iron. And this was a hewing axe that probably Solomon Johns used to build his home. And it got dropped or left there, and it sat there for 200 plus years, 250 years, and I got it. The other thing is, this is a Clarendon site. This, here's your Colonial shoe buckles. One's got an iron center, shape, and tongue. This one's got a brass shape. These are usually rusted away, but because this was sitting in a stone wall, it wasn't laying in the dirt, it probably helped it survive a little bit longer. I've got 2, 4, 6 Colonial coins. Well, actually, one's from 1808-ish or earlier. There's always the cookware. There's always the brick that's laying around. There's always the pile of nails that you dig, old square nails. That's how you know you got a home site. Spoons, knives, old hoe for gardening. So you can kind of, the first thing I found at this site, which was about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, was this stirrup. It was in the stone wall along the old Bandon Road. Bandon in 34, 36, something like that. And then I just walked away from the site. And about a year ago or so, I decided to go back, and that's when I found the British artillery button, the New York State militia button, and a ton of other, like I said, 6 coins or so. This is a beautiful, well, I say beautiful, it's a bone-handled pocket knife with etching in the bone. Usually that stuff is gone. And the last thing I want to talk about before, if you have any questions, is one of the holy grails of metal detecting is to find a 1789 George Washington inaugural button. Everybody dreams about finding one of those buttons. And and they were to commemorate the George Washington being inaugurated as first president of the United States. I've been lucky enough to find 12 of them. And here's 10 of them here. I've given one to the property owner, the last one I found, which was up here in Pittsburgh on Elm Street. And the other one I gave to the Danby Historical Society. So it's just, I want to say, it's nice to know how to run the machine and what to listen for and how to find the places to go. But at the end of the day, it's luck. Because finding a target in the ground is like having something hang from the ceiling in here and blindfolding you, and you try to figure out where it is. You don't know where that stuff is. You just have to keep sweeping, looking, because, and then if you're lucky, you pop over something like that. So, questions? Yes.
When do you stop digging a deep target? Because sometimes I find these. Well, I got like a 35 on an Equinox 800, and I'm digging to China.
Yeah.
Still haven't hit it yet.
Well, how much time do you want to spend? Now, one good trick is to do this. If it's a coin or a button or something small, here, the way you run these things is you don't want any air between the coil and the ground because that's like an insulator. And the further, so if you're swinging like this, you're not going to find anything. Okay, so I always clip the top of the grass or the ground or the leaves. I get as close as I can without really hammering the coil, because that'll get you deeper and eliminate that layer of air. And the other crazy thing is, if I go out in the winter, I might have 5 inches of snow, so I'm 5 inches off the ground. But the water fills in for that air. And the water lets you still find things just like if you were right down on the ground. So that signal goes down through the moisture of the ground and the moisture of the snow. But if there's no snow, you want to be as close as possible. Now, to answer your question, if it's a coin and you raise your coil up and you get about 6 inches and that signal disappears, that's probably a small coin or target. If you do this, and you can still hear it up here, it's probably a hubcap. And you can, and when I am out on the farmlands, and I see that I'm going over a culvert in the farm field, of course I lift it up because it's going to blow my ears out. But what I find is even that culvert is 3-4 feet down because I can see each side of the ditch, I can still hear that thing up here. Okay, so if you're digging deep, it's probably maybe an old culvert or some heavy piece of metal. So raise your coil up, and if you lose it, within I would say a foot to be safe. But if you lose it in the first couple inches, then it's probably something good.
I gotta go back.
But if you still hear it up here, it's don't dig everything because you'll burn yourself out.
Okay, thanks.
That was a good question. Yes.
How do you find the LiDAR website? Is it Vermont State?
That's easy, kinda. That's I don't know if let me get my brain here. Vermont Interactive Map. And that will take you right to it. The Vermont Interactive Map. I don't have a way. I'm not connected to the internet.
Is it the site like VCGI?
Yeah.
Yes, and then
Right. But I type in like Vermont Interactive Map, and it'll come up in the Google list as, and then you click on it, and you'll get a map of Vermont.
Yeah.
And then, of course, zoom into the area you're interested in. But the trick is, the key is on the left side of the screen. There is I don't know if I can answer. On the left side of the screen, there's a choice panel of parcels, LiDAR, all kinds of boundary, this, that, and everything.
You want to look under the trees.
It's called
LiDAR.
It's called what?
Beneath the trees. On your right hand side, there's parcel, and at least on my computer, there's something called beneath the trees.
No, I don't see that, but
Well, I do. The other day when you were showing me yours,
yeah,
yours looked totally different than mine.
yeah. Well, it might be a different site.
But anyway, on mine it's called beneath.
So Vermont Interactive Map opens up to a map of Vermont. You look over on the side, and you've got all these choices. And the thing that I like about, besides LiDAR, and it's called Hillshade. So you wanna block out, you wanna pick LiDAR, knock out the other two choices, I can't remember, but you wanna pick hillshade, that makes it that gray, and that gives it that really defined look. Now, the other thing that map does is it's got a parcel check. And so if I want to know who owns property, it'll tell me who owns and where the mailing address is, and then I know who to go ask.
Right.
And it also tells me don't walk over the brook because now you're not on the property more. So it does that for me, yes.
Have you looked into GPR at all? Researching what GPR can also do with metal detecting?
What's GPR? I don't know.
Ground penetrating radar.
Yeah, isn't that what they use in Britain to find the old foundations, like that aren't metal, for the old iron
They use it all
age
over the world.
roundhouses and things?
They use it all over the world. They've been using it in South America to find old Aztec
Yeah.
areas, and they've been using it in America as well to find the old structures of different houses as well. I didn't know if you use that to find.
No, I don't have that equipment. But there was a show that I used to watch, Time Team, I think it was something, and they use that all the time, looking for old Roman roads and those kind of things. So they walk around with those pipes. Is that what you're talking about? And then they map it out. But no, I'm strictly a metal detector. If it's not, I'm not expecting to find anything that's not metal. Sometimes other things come up out of the hole, like a piece of pottery or a clay pipe or something, or clay marble or something like that. But and there's so much to this metal detecting hobby that, and the things you can find and the places you can go. I just want to stay more narrowly focused as opposed to spread myself out and just, I'd rather be good at one thing instead of mediocre at 10 other things. So that's kind of where the lane I try to stay in. Yes.
A beginner question. Is there a difference in conditions, say, if it rained the night before, would you have better luck than if it's been very dry?
Well, you don't have better luck because the one thing that, when you say the rain helps penetrate, you might get deeper target. Remember that signal travels better through water, just like when I found that counterfeit coin in that stream. I mean, it didn't have any trouble hearing that, and it was 2-3 inches down in the water and 4 or 5 inches down in the sediment. But when you said the word, do you have better luck? You don't have luck until you go over something that's there. You can't produce, these guys buy these $1,000 machines and all that, $1,500, it's got a, super multi-frequency, blah, 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 blah. And you can pay as much as you want and have the best one and be the best detectorist. But if you don't go over where a target lays, it won't go off. So it's a lot of luck. And I repeat that, it's not about being good, it's about being lucky. The good part comes in where you do your research, you're used to your machine, you know what it's telling you, it's that stethoscope, it's not your heart, it's your lungs, you can distinguish what the machine is talking to you about and telling you by the noises, by lifting the coil up and doing little tricks about, there are some things you can eliminate that you want to dig and the location you're at. Again, if I'm up at Roger Stevens' site and a signal comes across, a solid signal, but it's a low one, like a 30 or something like that, I'm going to dig it because it could be a pewter 31st Regiment button. If I'm down at the park where everybody's showing their bottle caps and things, I'm not digging all of them 30s. I'm looking for the higher ones that might be a coin or something so I can have some taco money. Yes.
Now, if you ever get bored, would you consider having another one of these on how to take care of the things you find, preserve?
Well, I'm not an expert at that.
Well,
So-
seeing your collection, you do
so-
pretty well at it.
Well, one thing I'll say about that is that when you come to cleaning coins and things, they're all different. You all have to approach every one differently. They're all in different conditions. They have different types and levels of patina on them. I've destroyed quite a few coins because a lot of times the detail is in the crud. And when you wipe the crud off, the detail is gone. Now, I'm not talking about silver coins. Those you just wipe off with water and pow, they pop.
So you clean it just enough to identify it? And
That's right, then I stop. Because if I can identify it, and if I can get it here, if it's like a disc that doesn't look like anything, there's no detail on either side, then I might scrape a little harder, because what's it worth? I mean, it's still just a copper washer without a hole in it, really. So, cleaning is tricky though. And you can go online and watch people and they give you good suggestions and things, but there's no guarantee that you won't have a coin and then, oh, this is a King George II. You start cleaning it, where did King George go? Because you wipe the detail off. So you just have to go as far as you're comfortable and then stop. And that's probably the best advice. I just use a toothpick to get the heavy crud off. And I go lightly or heavy depending on how it's coming out. I use a toothbrush and I don't ever put any water on a copper coin because that'll ruin it. And I put water on silver coins. I will put water on a copper coin if I don't have anything ID for it. What do you got to lose? If you've gone all those other things and you still don't know what it is, maybe by putting a light coat of water on it, you can get some of the dirt off. Maybe something will pop out. But copper coins are tough, and that's why we say save in history, because a lot of these coins that are 250 years old that are barely identifiable. I think one of the ones in there was the King George I, and another 200, 300 years, they're all going to be slick copper, just round circles. And it is nice to be getting them out of the ground and documenting, at least in my case, documenting where you find them and giving them to the Historical Society so when my kids won't throw them out when I'm gone. And, they'll know more, they'll document some of what I gave them, and it'll live on a little bit longer. So that's kind of and then there's always this, but this could be gone tomorrow. I mean, YouTube or anything on the internet is probably in the idea of 100 years is just a flash. It's here today, gone tomorrow kind of thing. So that's what I do. And yes, sir.
Not to discourage anybody in the audience that's considering this craft or hobby, because in my limited experience detecting, the most valuable thing other than the equipment itself is patience. And so my question to you is, working out the Roger Stevens cellar hole, how much time did you spend there?
Well, I didn't take it all down, but let me tell you that I've been doing this for about 10 years, and I've been retired just about the same amount of time. So, and my kids are all grown and now under my feet. So I've got, I don't want to say a lot of time because I haven't been in a couple of weeks, but life gets in the way. But to answer your question, I spend a lot of time, but it's so peaceful up in the woods that people come walking past me with their kids and their dogs and other things. And we talk sometimes, and all I tell them is, I'm just like you, but I got a stick in my hand. So that's what I'm doing up there. It's meeting people, it's finding things that you didn't know existed, it's being out in the woods, but it's a lot of time. Sometimes, like 10 years ago, I'd be out for 6-7 hours a day when I would go out. Now I'm a little bit older and my knees talk to me a little bit louder, and now I might go out for 4 hours a day or something like that. And I go out when I can. And if I find a hot spot, I keep going back because I don't want to wait 6 months and find out somebody else found what I found, and they cleaned it out. Because the whole hobby's about, it's like bass fishing or something. You don't want to be telling the whole world where your best fishing hole is. You know, except for a few close friends. And but it's all of what I showed you. It's an adventure. It's a hobby. It's outdoors. Once you bought the stuff, the only expense after that, there's no license. There's no season you have to abide by. The only expense is the gas in your car to get you from your house to where you want to go. So right now, I'm cheap. I don't like to spend money. I recharge my batteries and I go out. I'm not spending money. I'm not on the internet ordering from Amazon. And then I come home and because my wife does all that damage. So anyway, that's kind of what I got. And any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
What would one of those cost?
This right here is an amazing machine for about $600, and that's pretty cheap as far as pretty good metal detectors go. The ones you buy now with all the fancy program this and beach mode and field mode and multi-frequency and check for ambient noise, I mean, all that. You can pay anywhere from $800-900 up to say $1,500 on the average for those. They won't find you anything if you don't swing over anything. So that's the lucky part. That's like grabbing the string in the room with a blindfold on. This is about a $600 machine. This was the first serious one that I bought, and I still have it today. And I have found tons of stuff with it. And anybody who wants to get in this hobby, I always point them to this machine because once you got it set up, it's on. That's what a home site sounds like. This is what a field sounds like. Okay? So you're walking through the field, you don't know there's anything there, and all of a sudden, whoa, what's this? Where'd that come from? So then you start listening for, maybe I can make this work. But that's what you have to accustom your ear is, because if I go like this, it's that
Split second.
split second, right? Or you might be over here. See how close you can be and not hear it? That's pure luck. Ooh, what was that? Ooh, there it is again. Let me see if it still goes this way. I always do this. Still there. Get my shovel. I'm going. So and then it's off. It can't get any simpler than that for a beginner. So $600. Well, then you got another $100. Well, it depends on. You can use the shovel in your shed. That might be a little heavy for you. It might not dig the kind of hole you want to dig. You got to have a pinpointer. That's going to cost you $125 to $150. But once you spend $600 for this, another couple hundred for the things you're going to need. Let's say $800, and then you're done. And that should, unless you back over it with your car or something, should last you.
Yeah.
It should last you. Well, the pinpointer, this is a little bit harder, but pinpointers and shovels and things often get left in the woods because you get excited and you get up and you start going, and all of a sudden, oh, where's my pinpointer? Where's my shovel? And you look around and it's nowhere, and then you got to think, where did I go? Did I go over the hill? Was it down the brook? And it scares you because it's a $150 investment.
You tie a red ribbon around it.
Well, I have a lanyard to my
my
thing there, but yeah, I have a little yellow tape on my shovel. It's been used. That tape's been used before, but yeah, But the hours and hours and hours and years of entertainment I've had and fun and exercise and fresh air and meeting people, well worth it.
And mosquitoes. It's
Well-
better to go out in the winter time so you don't get.
Well, you got ticks, mosquitoes, and ground hornets.
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
not forget that.
Poison ivy.
In poison ivy is not my problem because I'm not allergic to it. My grandfather used to eat it to show off, and I pull it out with my bare hands, and nothing.
I'm
happens.
allergic to sumac, regular sumac trees.
So there's something in my blood that poison ivy just it doesn't affect me. I don't know. So that is for other people. But I get scratched up all the time. I go through the places I go too. It's not a walk in the park. I'm climbing up mountainsides and I'm going through grass this high sometimes to get to that, and picker bushes. I have scratches all over my arms. And yeah, so.
Do you let people know where you're going so if you don't come back, they can
Well,
find
no,
you?
I haven't, but
Ah.
I figure somebody will find my
When
remains.
you roll down a hill and, you know.
Well, I kind of do sometimes, but I don't know. That's if I'm not coming back, that's not my concern.
You got a cell phone with your help.
Yeah. No, that's. But like I said, it's entertaining, it's fun, it's good exercise. I get to meet a lot of people. I hope that my goal. I used to train people in the utility business on how to exchange meters and do all kinds of other things. And I would get a class, and I would always tell them that my goal is that pretty low bar. When you leave, you've learned at least one thing. Hopefully, you've learned a lot. But if you go out with one piece of information, knowledge that you didn't have, then I'm success. So hopefully, everybody took away something, and I reached my goal. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Phil.